People always tell me, I hear this all the time, I am not good at taking tests. And every time I hear it, I pause because I know exactly where that belief comes from. Maybe it's from a bad experience years ago. Maybe self-doubt, maybe fear, the pressure of juggling life, work, and study all at once. But here's what most people don't realize. It's not about being naturally good at tests. It's about understanding how your brain learns, how it holds onto information, and how, yes, even now, your brain can literally rewire itself to succeed. No, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have a photographic memory. You just need the right tools, the right mindset, the right science behind you. It's not about being good at tests. It's about training your brain to pass them. So welcome everyone, whether you're joining me from maybe a vibrant city and state like Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, California, New York, or maybe from somewhere with kind of like the quiet charm of the South, like I'm here in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Maybe you're holding your second or your third cup of coffee, or maybe just sheer determination to finally pass these exams. So I'm so glad that you are here. Let's make this journey both productive, but also unforgettable. Anelga Lejarza, I've spent the last 30 years living and breathing human resources. 30 years. You heard that right. 3 decades. 3 decades. But you know what? That is not enough. It is not enough because I need to make it to 50 years. I want to make it to 50 years in HR. Why not? I mean, I already got 30. What's 20 more? Maybe I'll be able to get the World Guinness record of being the first HR professional with that record of 50 years in HR. I'm the founder of HRTrainingClasses.com, also Lejarza Workforce Solution, and I hold every major HR certification under the sun. But more importantly, I have helped thousands of HR professionals just like you to pass these exams, even when they thought that they couldn't. So today, I'm not just here as a trainer. I'm here as someone who has walked the road, felt the pressure, and figured out how to turn that stress into success. So this is not going to be kind of like your typical study harder webinar. This is about working smarter with your brain as your study partner. So grab your pen, clear all your distractions, and get ready. Because over the next 60 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to train your brain to pass any HR certification that you're working toward. So let's dive into it. But before we do that, I need to clarify that I am not an employment law attorney. I always wanted to be one, but this is the closest I am gonna be. But any recommendations or any insights that I provide are based on my professional knowledge and my experience. They reflect what I will do in a similar situation. However, if you require legal advice, I strongly recommend consulting with a qualified employment law attorney. Additionally, this session is educational in nature. While we'll reference concepts such as neuroplasticity to explain how we learn and how we retain information, again, this webinar doesn't provide medical or any clinical advice. I want to let you know that this training session is being recorded and it will be available on our website, HRTrainingClasses.com, for future reference. So why this webinar will be incredible beneficial? Well, passing these HRCI and SHRM certifications exams is not just about what you know. It's about how your brain learns and how your brain retains information. This power-packed 1-hour webinar is going to dive into neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to grow and to adapt, and shows how understanding this process can supercharge your exam prep with proven techniques, science-backed and backed insights, and interactive learning tools like multiple choice, scenario-based questions. You'll walk away knowing exactly how to study smarter and not harder. So whether you are just getting started or maybe trying to pass your next big exam, this session is your brain's best friend on the road to certification success. So let's walk through what makes this HR certification very exciting, but also challenging. Yeah, that road is going to be exciting, but trust me, it's going to be challenging as well. So when we talk about certifications like the PHR, SPHR, SHRM-CP, SHRM-SCP, and even GPHR, we're talking about credentials that are highly respected in the HR industry. They help you stand out. They help you earn trust and show you that you truly understand the HR profession. So earning one of these certifications is more than just having this nice title or these letters after your name. This is a validation of your expertise. It proves your peers. It proves leadership. It proves your future employers that you have mastered key areas of HR and that you are committed to continuous growth. And this is where the challenge comes in. These exams are not easy. These exams are designed to challenge you. They go beyond just memorizing terms or definitions. What makes them especially tough is the focus on real-world application. The questions are scenario-based. That means that you're being asked, what would you do in this situation? Not just, what does the law says? What does IRCA prohibit? What does Title VII prohibit? Is what would you do in this situation? So to do well on these exams, you have to approach them with a strategic mindset. You need to think like a business partner. You need to think like the owner of the company, like the decision maker, like a compliance expert, but all at the same time. Well, that's why starting with the right preparation is so important. You need a structure, you need support, you need a roadmap that keeps you focused and also accountable. Finally, once you understand the exam format, the types of questions, and the expectations of each exam, you're going to feel more confident. And that confidence is key to passing these monsters exams. So again, if you're starting your certification journey or you are thinking about it, now is the time to get clear on what it takes and how to prepare. And that's exactly what we are here to help you with. So let's start with the science that's going to change how you approach your exam preparation from this point forward. This is called neuroplasticity. This is the brain's incredible ability to change, to grow, to rewire itself throughout your entire life. That means no matter your age, your background, your past testing experiences, or even maybe how long you have been out of school, the brain is not fixed or set in stone after childhood. No, but rather it can continue to learn, it continues to grow and change in response to experiences, to the environment, to learning, and even injury. Your brain still is capable of learning in powerful and efficient and lasting ways. And here's the magic. Every time that you engage with new information, when you read, when maybe you solve a problem, when you talk it out, or even when something goes wrong, your brain starts creating and strengthening neural pathways. The more you practice recalling that information, the stronger and the faster those connections become. So this is not just about memorization. This is about training your brain to retrieve that information and apply your knowledge. Whether it is during the PHR, the SPHR, the CP, the SCP, or any of the HR certifications. This is how we move from, I hope I can remember this too, I got this. So why neuroplasticity matters in adult learning? It proves that adults can learn new things. Neuroplasticity debunks that myth that adults cannot learn as easily as children. In reality, adults can continue building new knowledge and skills by actively engaging their brains, especially through repetition, curiosity, and emotional connection to the content. It supports skill building and career development for professionals like HR practitioners preparing for certifications. Neuroplasticity enables the brain to retain complex information, adapt to new systems and laws, and improve memory, recall all essential for success in the exams or transitioning perhaps into new roles. It enhances learning with purpose and emotion. When learning is tied to a meaningful goal, such as maybe helping others, maybe overcoming personal challenges, advancing a career, the brain is more likely to strengthen those neural pathways. Emotionally engaging material increases attention and retention, which is especially important for adult learners, juggling competing priorities. It encourages a growth mindset, understanding that the brain can change, encourage adults to adopt a growth mindset, believing that abilities can be developed through effort and learning. This mindset reduces fear of failure and boosts that persistence in the face of challenging topics or new technologies. It helps overcome learning blocks. Adults may feel stuck or experience self-doubt when learning something new. Neuroplasticity reminds us that practice reshapes the brain and that not knowing something simply means that you haven't formed that neural pathway yet. So in short, neuroplasticity is the foundation of lifelong learning, whether someone is re-entering the workforce, maybe changing careers, or aiming to pass the challenging HR certification exam. The brain is ready. The brain is able to rise to the occasion. So let's look at the brain at work. Let's look at how we learn, how we forget, how we retain information. So we're going to be looking at how neural connections are formed, why repetition works, and sometimes when repetition will not work. And also we're going to be busting this learning myth that, oh, I'm too old to learn. So let's take a quick dive into what actually happen in our brain when we are learning new material like FMLA, ADA, Title VII, IRCA, USERA, ERISA, or memorizing the eligibility requirements for COBRA. Your brain contains about 86 billion neurons. Every time you learn something new, these neurons start to talk to each other by sending electrical signals through tiny connections, very tiny connections that are called synapses. Now, here's the magic. The more often that you review or that you practice something, the stronger these synaptic connections become. Think of it like a dirt path. Walk it once, and it barely shows, right? But walk it repeatedly, over and over, and you're gonna start to see a well-worn trail. This process, again, is called neuroplasticity. It's that incredible ability to reorganize and rewire itself in responses to learning and also in responses to experiences. It means that your brain is never fixed. Even as adults, your brain is capable of forming new neural networks every single day. So when you are learning HR exam content, you are literally changing your brain. The more you review, the more you practice, especially with methods like active recall and spaced repetition, the more efficient that your brain becomes at retrieving that information later on. And that's why repetition and consistency are the keys to memory, practice and repetition, practice and repetition. If you cram once and never revisit the content, your brain ruins those weak connections. But if you keep coming back to it over and over again, your brain says, this is important, and keeps it accessible. So bottom line, learning rewires your brain. Forgetting is your brain's way of kind of like cleaning the house. And remembering is a matter of repetition, practice, repetition, relevance, and connection. Well, talking about repetition, let's talk about this, why repetition works and when it doesn't. So we all have heard the phrase, practice makes perfect, right? But is that really true? I'm gonna say yes and no. Repetition does work, but only when it is the right kind of repetition. So if you're just rereading your HR notes over and over, or maybe watching the same video again and again, but without testing yourself, your brain is gonna start to check out. It says, I have seen this before, and stop paying attention. That's called passive learning. It doesn't build that strong neural connections that we want. What your brain really loves is active, not passive, active repetition, like maybe quizzing yourself, teaching the content to someone else, applying the material in practice questions. So these activities are going to force your brain to retrieve that information, not just to rewatch it. Another key is spaced repetition. That means spreading out your reviews over time. For example, instead of cramming FMLA rules for 5 hours in one day, study them maybe, let's say, for 30 minutes today. Then review again, maybe in a couple of days. Then wait one more week. So a week later. So this timing tells your brain, hey, this keeps coming up. Maybe this information is important. Maybe I'm gonna have to retain this information because it keeps coming back. I keep seeing this information and the memory sticks. So repetition works when it is spaced, when it is active, and a little bit challenging. If it feels too easy, you're probably not learning. You want your brain to work just hard enough to strengthen the connection without getting overwhelmed. So in short, repeating content passively equals forgettable. Repeating content actively equals unforgettable. It's gonna stick. So let's bust one of the biggest myths about learning, which is I'm too old to learn new things. So I hear this all the time, especially from professionals preparing for HR certification exams. My brain it doesn't work the way that it used to work in the past. I'm just too old to learn new information. But here's the truth. Science says otherwise. So thanks to neuroplasticity, your brain can form new neural connections at any age, whether you're 25, 45, or 75, your brain is still capable of rewiring itself. Learning doesn't stop unless you stop trying. So in fact, some studies show that older adults have an advantage in certain types of learning, like critical thinking and pattern recognition. You know why? Because of our life experiences and decision-making history. So the real barriers aren't age. They are belief, habits, fear. So when you tell yourself, I cannot learn this, your brain listen. I cannot learn this, your brain is listening to you. But when you say, I'm going to figure this out, your brain responds by building stronger pathways. So if you have been avoiding, let's say, HR studies because you think, I am too old, I'm too behind, please remember your brain hasn't given up on you. You have just been telling it the wrong story. Well, today is the perfect day to start telling it a new story. So let's look at passive versus active learning in HR exam preparation. Passive versus active. I like to think about this, passive versus active. I like to think about it like passive, think about like off-the-job training methods, and think about the active, like on-the-job training method. You're actually doing things. So let's look at some common prep mistakes. Let's look at some techniques that are going to boost long-term memory and why passive exposure fails under pressure. So when preparing for your HR certification exam, not all studying is created equal. And unfortunately, many people fall into the trap of passive learning without even realizing it. So let's start with a common mistake. Rereading your notes over and over again. Yes, it may feel productive, right? You're studying, but your brain is just scanning the material. It's not really storing the information. That's passive learning. It doesn't challenge your memory. So it doesn't create those strong neural pathways, those neural connections. What's another mistake? I used to do this one. Highlighting entire paragraph. Highlighting the entire paragraph in your study guide. It makes your book look very colorful, but it's not really helping you think critically or retain that information. One more, cramming everything the night before. It gives a false sense of confidence. Sure, you may remember short term, but it's not going to stick. And certainly not for scenario-based questions. So now let's flip it. Active learning. Active learning is about engaging with the material. So what does that mean? Asking yourself questions instead of just rereading. Quiz yourself, taking practice exams, reviewing what you got wrong, teaching the concept to someone else. This is the best way to retain information when you teach others. Even if you're teaching yourself, you're teaching, I don't know, your dog. So here's the truth. If you are not mentally working while studying, your brain is just observing. It's not learning. So the goal is very simple. Less highlighting, more retrieval, less reading, more testing, less memorizing, and more applying your knowledge. So when it comes to HR certification exams, long-term memory is going to be your best friend. It's not about what you remember today. It's about what you can recall a week, a month, or even years from now. So let's go over a few brain back techniques that can help log that knowledge in, but for the long haul. So the first technique is called spaced repetition. This means you don't study everything all at once. Instead, you space it over a period of time, reviewing the same topic again and again with increasing intervals. For example, review FMLA eligibility today. Then again, maybe in 2 days, and then in a week, and then in 2 weeks. Well, what's going to happen is that this technique of spaced repetition is going to strengthen the neural pathway. Every time you revisit the information, you are making that neural pathway, those connections stick. Now, the second technique is active recall. Don't just read, retrieve, close your book, and try to explain the concepts in your own words. Do not memorize that paragraph and say, oh, I'm going to pass the exam because I am going to memorize the entire book and every single paragraph. No. Close your book and try to explain what you just read, but in your own words. Think about you're going to be teaching a 10-year-old with your own words what the concept is. Quiz yourself. Force your brain to pull the information out without peeking. That's how you build lasting memory. Also use interleaving, which means mixing up the topics. Instead of studying just one thing for hours, instead of spending 3 hours just on ADA, maybe study ADA for 30 minutes, then COBRA, then I9s, then go back to ADA. So this makes your brain work harder to remember and apply what you learn. This is how it is on these exam certifications, right? So everything is mixed. It's not by category, by module. Okay, so what about another powerful technique? Elaboration. This means connecting what you are learning to what you already know. So let's say if you're learning about the WARN Act, the Workers Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, think about a real life company layoff. Maybe something that you have heard about. I always think about when Elon Musk took over Twitter, for example. So what happened? Your brain loves stories and personal relevance. We tend to remember stories. So when you're studying a new concept, I want you to think about applying it to a real life situation. It could be one that you are familiar that already happened, or it could be one that you create, but make it more like into a story because we love stories. And finally, sleep. Yes, seriously, sleep. Your brain processes and stores what you have studied while you sleep. So if you're pulling all-nighters, you're actually harming your memory. Did you know that? Let's talk about something critical when it comes to preparing for high-stakes exams like this HRCI and SHRM exams. And that is passive exposure doesn't work, especially under pressure. So reading through slides, watching videos, or simply highlighting a textbook. I know. It feels productive, right? But when it is time to recall that information under time conditions, your brain says, wait, what page was that on again? Well, here's the truth. Under pressure, your brain defaults to what's being actively practiced, no what's being casually schemed. It's like watching someone drive a stick shift and thinking, you got it, until you are in the car alone, grinding the gears, and while maybe a truck is honking behind you. So to pass your exam, you need to move from passive exposure to active retrieval. That means using flashcards, test your memory, right? Use flashcards, time practice tests, teaching the concept out aloud. Even if you said, but I don't have anybody, I'll give you Mika, I'll give you Maya. They're always around here. You can talk to them. They are experts already in HR because they hear me every single day, every single night. Yeah, they like listening to this information. Just teach yourself. Trust yourself. Think about you are teaching somebody and just go ahead and explain. But always remember, not memorizing, but explaining things with your own words. So the goal is not just to recognize the right answer, but to confidently retrieve it. So when the clock is ticking and the pressure is on, so you don't have to absorb information. You train your brain to use it. Because when pressure hits, passive knowledge crumbles. Active recall is gonna prevail. Ooh, let's talk about this. First, let me ask you something. When was the last time you made a mistake? I don't want to think about it. I make some mistakes. Oh, well, we're human beings. That's okay. So if you are like most of us, probably not that long ago, I probably maybe already made a couple of mistakes this morning. Lessons learned, right? But here's the good news. Every single mistake you make is an opportunity. I like that. In fact, science tells us that our brains rewire when we make errors, especially when we reflect and we correct them. This is called error-based learning. Error-based learning. When you get something wrong and your brain recognizes it, a special signal is going to be triggered. It's like your neurons saying, wait, this didn't go as planned. Let's fix it. And boom, that's how new pathways are formed. Mistakes literally strengthen your brain, not through shame or fear, but through awareness and adaptation. So whether you're studying for your PHR, learning a new HR law, developing leadership skills, embrace the errors. That's right. Embrace the errors. They are not setbacks. They are setups for a smarter growth. So the next time that you stumble, smile, because your brain is getting stronger. So no wonder my brain is very strong. So when you stumble, your brain is getting stronger. It's very strong. Lessons learned. Remember, you don't grow in spite of mistakes. You grow because of them. That's right. So let's keep learning. Let's keep growing. And yes, let's keep making smart mistakes. But here's the thing. Make those mistakes only once. Why are you gonna be making the same mistake over and over again when there is such a variety, collection, plethora of mistakes that we can make, right? So just make it once. Then we can learn from another one and from another one. So in this section, I want to look into error-based learning, how those wrong answers are going to strengthen the neural pathway, those neural connection. And also when I talk about turning test anxiety into a training opportunity and some tips to reduce the shame and boost resilience while studying. So the brain's favorite teacher. Mistakes. What? The brain's favorite instructor. Mistakes. Wrong answers light up your brain. When you make a mistake, your brain doesn't shut down. It activates. It shifts into problem-solving method. Regions like the anterior cingulate cortex fire up, detecting the error and signaling that something needs to be corrected. This is your brain saying, hold on, we got work to do here. Your brain analyzes the error. After detecting the mistake, your brain immediately begins analyzing it. Why was it wrong? What should the correct response be? This moment of reflection is going to be critical. It's in the analysis where the real understanding begins to form. Corrections build stronger neural pathways. We went through here. Oops, that was not the way. Let me go through it again and again. Oh, this is the right way. So now comes the magic. When you find and you fix the error, your brain forms it or reinforces the correct neural connection, right? You found the right pathway. So this is, again, the process of neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to recognize itself by forming new neural links, new pathways. So correcting an error is like paving a new road. It becomes faster, easier to travel the next time because you already went through there and the brain remembers. Mistakes are not setbacks. They are learning accelerators. So no more mistakes. We're gonna have some learning accelerators in the short and probably long term. No mistakes. These are learning accelerators. So many of us fear being wrong. But you know, the truth is, errors are essential for deep learning. When paired with feedback, wrong answers are more effective for long-term memory than the correct guesses. Why? Because the emotional and the cognitive weight of getting something wrong locks in the lesson more deeply, right? Like when I do my Saturdays study group, and let's say a participant answers a question, but they didn't maybe answer it correctly, and then I give the feedback. And I said, don't worry, you are learning because now that they answering correctly and I provided the feedback, guess what? You created that neuron pathway. Now you know how you have to go through, which road do you take. So again, the mistakes and then the feedback is gonna make those stronger neuron pathways. Learning through mistakes equal a stronger memory retention. So when you're actively engaged in identifying and correcting those mistakes, you are not just memorizing facts, you're understanding concepts. And that kind of learning is going to stick. It's going to stay. It's going to remain. It's going to be frozen. It's going to be cemented. So next time you get a question wrong, especially during like certification prep, like again, any of the PHR, SPHR, so, don't beat yourself up. Celebrate it. Thus, your brain literally rewiring itself to remember better next time. Wrong answers are not a reflection of failure. They are a proof that your brain is growing. That's what we want. Now, let's be honest. Test anxiety, test anxiety is real. And if you are preparing for your HR certification exam and feel nervous, maybe overwhelmed, or even maybe panic at the thought of test day, you're not alone. You're not alone. But here's a refrain I want to offer you. What if anxiety isn't a weakness, but a training signal? Anxiety is your brain's way of saying, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. That's not a bad thing. It's actually incredibly helpful feedback. So instead of trying to get rid of anxiety, what if we listen to it? How about if we use it to create a better prep plan? So for example, if you get anxious when answering questions on ADA, on ERISA, USERA, COBRA, that's your brain telling you, hey, I need more time with this content, okay? Slow down. You're taking me too fast over here. Hold your horses. I need more time with this content. Use that anxiety as a diagnostic tool. It's highlighting the topics that need more focused review. Next, simulate the test environment. They practice tests under time conditions. This trains your brain to stay calm in real exam settings because you have already been there. The more familiar the pressure feels, the less scary it becomes. Also practice calming strategies. Deep breathing, positive self-talk. I got this. I got this. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I got this. I got this. Even visualizing success can train your mind to stay focused instead of panicking. Like sometimes I have clients that says, I'm not gonna pass the exam. It's tomorrow and I'm not gonna pass my exam. Then I go, then don't take it. If you're not gonna pass it, don't take it because you're going to be very discouraged and also you are going to impact in a negative way my 99% passing rate. If you are saying, I'm going to fail, that's it. Believe it. Believe your brain. That's it. You're going to fail. So how about if we think positive? Okay. So remind yourself that the nerves means that you care. So the goal is not to eliminate anxiety completely. The goal is to change it into preparation, focus, clarity. So when anxiety shows up, don't push it away. Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Ask it. What are you trying to teach me here, anxiety? Because sometimes the most uncomfortable feelings are the best teachers, the best instructors. So let's talk about something that it's rarely mentioned in test prep, but affects so many of us. Shame. Shame can show up when you feel like you're behind, right? When you forget something you thought that you mastered, or when others seem maybe to be doing better. Maybe you're thinking, I should have passed already. Oh, why cannot? I can't remember this. What's wrong with me? I cannot retain this information. But here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you, okay? Struggling doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you are learning. Real learning can be messy. It's full of forgetting, relearning, failing, and trying again and again and again. The key is to separate your performance from your worth. Not passing a practice test doesn't mean that you are not smart. It means that you need feedback, and feedback is a gift. If you are feeling ashamed or discouraged, take a step back and say, this moment doesn't define me. This moment teaches me. Then ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now to get 1% better? What is one simple little thing I can do right now just to get 1% better? You're not asking for much. And then 2%, and then 3%. Remember that resilience is a skill. It's built by showing up even when you feel frustrated or when you are afraid. Every time you keep studying after a tough day, you are training your brain and your mindset. Replace shame with curiosity. We have to be curious. Don't get furious, get curious. I will never forget somebody who said that to me. Don't get furious, be curious. So replace shame with this curiosity. So instead of saying, I'm bad at this, say, that's interesting. Why didn't I remember that? So this switch is going to change everything. You move from judgment to what we want, growth. Finally, be kind to yourself. Will you talk to your best friend the way that you talk to yourself during a study stress? If not, maybe it's time to rewrite the script. So let's shift gears and put everything that we have talked so far into action. So we're going to practice, let me see, of course, Elga always runs out of time. So let's see how many of these scenarios we can get to. Remember, the goal is not to memorize, but to retrieve information from memory. That's what's gonna build the long-term knowledge. That's gonna test confidence. So let's see, let's go ahead and try it together. I have 4 scenarios, but looking at the time, like always, Elga's problem, she wants to cover too much. Okay, so an HR manager is preparing to conduct a reduction in force and needs to determine if the WARN Act, the Workers Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, notice requirements apply. Which of the following is most accurate regarding WARN compliance? WARN applies to all private sector employers, regardless of size. Employers must provide notice if they are laying off 25 or more employees within 60 days. WARN applies to employers with 100 or more full-time employees and requires 60-day notice for covered plant closings or mass layoff. Employers must notify employees and the Department of Labor immediately after layoff occurs. So I know some of you, especially if you're in my boot camp, I know that you said, I got the answer, but let's break it down, okay? So we know that the WARN Act applies to employers with 100 or more full-time employees. We know that, yes, it requires 60-day written notice. Gotta give that 60-day written notice in advance in the event of the mass layoff or plant closing, right? So option A is incorrect, right? Because WARN doesn't apply to all private employers. It only applies to those employers that are gonna meet the employee threshold. So when we say applies to all private sector employers, regardless of the size, false. We know that it applies to employers with 100 employees or more. So as we go through these answers in your real exam, that's what you need to do. You need to say, no, this one is incorrect because of this. So you are using that knowledge that you already have to apply it on the situations for you to determine this is wrong because of this is wrong because of this, right? Well, let's look at option B. Employer must provide notice if they are laying off 25 or more employees within 60 days. Why do we know this one is wrong? It's inaccurate because the trigger number is 50 full-time employees for a mass layoff. It's not 25, right? So we know that is incorrect. It's not 25. How about option D? Employers must notify employees in the Department of Labor immediately after a layoff occurs. That is incorrect because we know we gotta provide that 60-day written notice before, not after the layoff, right? So this question definitely mirrors what you will see on your exams. They often use realistic workplace scenarios to test if you can apply the HR law and practices, not just memorizing them. So this is what we practice, scenario-based learning, very common in the SHRM exams, very common, eliminating wrong answers by logic. But to eliminate the wrong answers, gotta have the knowledge, right? Pulling information from memory, not just recognizing it. We have to pull the information that, wait a minute, the WARN Act applies to employers with 100 employees or more. Gotta give a 60-day written notice in advance, no after. So retrieving this knowledge in a low-stakes setting helps build your brain ability to do it again during the actual exam. And that's what we mean by training your brain to pass. This is not about, I'll read the question a couple of times and the answers, and I'm gonna memorize what the answer is. Then you're not gonna pass the exams. You're not gonna pass any of the exam because you're not gonna have the same question over here for you to say, I memorize which one is the right answer. It's about having that knowledge and being able to apply it. Okay, I think I can go through one more. Let's look at this one. This is with ADA. Those of you who know me, you know I'm very passionate with ADA. ADA in the interactive process. An employee at a manufacturing plant provides medical documentation stating she cannot stand for more than 2 hours at a time and requests a modified schedule. As an HR professional, what should you do first? Approve the modified schedule immediately. Ask the employee to return with a full diagnosis. Begin the interactive process to explore reasonable accommodations. Deny the request because standing is an essential function of the job. Okay. So I'm sure you know the correct answer because the first step to provide a reasonable accommodation is to engage in the interactive process. We know that interactive process is that informal but documented conversation that we're going to have with the employee. That's the first step to provide a reasonable accommodation. So let's see how neuroplasticity can help us get this right. So we know that neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to rewire and strengthen those neural connections, those neural pathways through repeated and meaningful engagement. So pattern recognition. So by repeatedly seeing ADA scenarios like this, your brain builds a neural shortcut. Person has medical restrictions, plus workplace requests. We start with the interactive process. We hear reasonable accommodations and we immediately associate that too, right? We need to engage in the interactive process. Each time that you practice applying that logic to a question, your brain gets better at recognizing this legal pattern, even under stress. So this is when we look at retrieval under pressure. When your brain is trained through active recall, like answering time questions, teaching someone else, or explaining a scenario out aloud, it wires stronger pathways than passive reading. So if you have practiced ADA scenarios enough times, your brain won't panic or even second guess. Instead, it would immediately retrieve, begin the interactive process. Always, first step to provide reasonable accommodation, engage in the interactive process. Excuse me. So we immediately retrieve that information. So this is neuroplasticity in action, building mental reflexes through repetition and context. So why the other options fail? Why this matter for brain wiring? How about approve the modifier schedule immediately? Your brain needs to pause. Jumping straight to approval ignores our legal obligation to evaluate maybe undue hardship or maybe alternative accommodations. We're not going to approve immediately. We need to slow down. B, ask for a full diagnosis. ADA focus on limitations, not diagnosis. Don't rewire your brain to change the wrong detail. Deny the request outright. That's a shortcut to litigation. Training your brain to never deny before that informal, documented conversation. This is critical for compliance. So by actively practicing these distinctions, your brain stops defaulting to what feels right and starts choosing what legally comes first. So when training our students, we need to say each time that you practice a question like this and think through the right legal step, your brain is literally rewiring itself to retrieve that information faster. I'll say the next two for the next, I hope that you really enjoy this, because this, when I started putting this together, it was too long that it was gonna be 2 hours. So you know what I decided? Let me cut it in half. How about if I actually cover half on May and the other half in June? So if you really enjoy this, let me tell you the second part that I'm gonna be covering also on a Wednesday, June 25th. So train your brain to pass. This is part 2. Designing a neuroplastic study plan. How to structure your study sessions. Balancing learning, recall, and review. Ideal schedule examples based on available study time. We're going to look into power tips, tools, techniques, and brain hacks. Flashcard systems, teach back method, visualization, how to study when you're tired, when you are distracted, when you're overwhelmed. Rewiring confidence. I can pass these exams. I'll use the 2 scenarios that I didn't use today, and I will add some more scenarios. All righty. Before I let you go, I have one more exciting announcement that I've been waiting to share. So I finally just finished writing something very close to my heart, and it is finally ready. Oh, you don't even know what I went through this morning to have this ready. So this is my brand new book, my brand new ebook called Elga's 50 Golden Nuggets to pass HRCI and SHRM exams. And yes, it's gonna be, right now it's available ebook, but I'm a baby boomer, so I want everything to be printed. It is available. I already tried to purchase it myself with my own credit card this morning to make sure that it is working, okay? Now, it is available now, only the first part, which is the 50 golden nuggets. What a lot of people didn't know is that I was adding a second one, also talking about a separate one, talking about neuroplasticity. My marketing specialist, Stephanie Acker, she promised me she's working on it. It's going to be the bonus is going to be ready this afternoon. You can purchase it. It's not going to show in your course page right now. This is one of the hiccups I went through this morning, okay? But when you purchase this, we're going to send you the link with the ebook, okay? After we figured out why it's not showing in your course page, okay, it's gonna be there eventually, but it is available right now. So this ebook is a collection of my most powerful strategies, mindset tips, real test tricks, legal insights, all pulled from my 30 years of HR experience and everything that I have learned coaching hundreds of students to pass the exam. So whichever exam you are going to be taking, these golden nuggets are designed to do one thing, which is help you think like a certified HR professional and pass with confidence. Again, it's not just a study guide. It's filled with encouragement, neuroplasticity-based techniques, real stories that will keep you going when studying gets tough. So if you have ever thought, I wish I had all of Elga tips in one place, well, now you do. For those of you, because I know I have several of you who are on my bootcamp, but if you're not in my bootcamp, I'm going to let you know that June 3rd, we start the next bootcamp. Sorry, I went over 2 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that if you want to buy this ebook, I was the first one this morning. All you have to do, you can scan this QR code. So I wanted to give you that opportunity. You can scan that QR code and it's gonna take you straight to the website, okay? Straight to the website when you can purchase this. The 50 golden nuggets is ready. We can send you the link right away. The bonus book is a separate bonus book that comes also with this. My marketing specialist promised me that it should be ready in 2-3 hours. They wanted to hold on and not release it. And I was like, oh no, it has to be released today. So that ebook is ready with the 50 golden nuggets. Okay, and with that said, as we come to the conclusion of today's session, I want to leave you with this important reminder. Your brain is not fixed. It's not limited. It's not broken. It's wired for growth. And through neuroplasticity, you hold the power to reshape every single day. So passing these monster exams, it's not just about memorization. It's about rewiring your brain to think like a strategic, confident HR professionals. So when the exams shows up with these intimidating questions and confusing scenarios, you won't panic because you have trained your brain to pause, to analyze, and conquer them. Remember, every hour you study, every practice question you answer, every concept that you review, you are not just preparing for an exam, you are transforming your mind. Keep going, stay consistent, never forget, you are not just going to pass, you are going to crush it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you so much. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay empowered. And I will see you next month, June 25th, Wednesday, June 25th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, everyone.